little about where this whole thing started. I was in graduate school in Boston.
You speak loud for those of us who are deaf.
I was in graduate school in Boston between 1968 and 70. I had a father-in-law who came to town because he had brothers in Boston and in New Haven, Connecticut. And his daughter was married to me, and we had just had a child. And so they came one time that we were in Boston to visit. And it was in the spring. The spring still is like 40 or 50 degrees. With still 18 or 20 inches of snow on the ground. And we went to Salem, Massachusetts. He and I drove up in the snow, and he had a great aunt who lived there. I never heard about her before and never heard about her afterwards. And I crawled, like Paul does on a regular basis, up into our attic for her. And I brought down a box about the size of a shoebox, and it had inside of it about 60 or 62 glass lantern slides. The old way to do photographs in the 30s and 40s was to take a piece of glass, but they had a lot of, put an emulsion of film on it, put it into a camera, and you keep it in dark space, put it under a cloth, put it inside your camera, come out, focus it, take your picture, go back inside, put the exposed film together with another piece of glass. You wrap it up, and then you put it in a sealed dark box. When you develop it, you take it the same way. You go into a dark room, you unwrap it, you dip like film into chemicals, you process it, and you end up with this etched glaze on the glass. Then you seal the two pieces of glass back together again, and you put an adhesive around it or tape around it, and you have a glass lantern slide. They call it a lantern slide because you need a high power light beam to shoot the picture a distance of 40, maybe from here to that wall, to project the picture. You've got to put light through whatever this emulsion is. And then, of course, this went out really, really fast because it was complicated. And then a guy by the name of Kodak developed a film that was the same thing, only it's all on a little thin piece of plastic. And that's how Kodak made multi-millions. And that's why this photography system died in the 30s. I had these pictures and knew nothing about them. And she said, well, they came from Lithuania. And I never lived in Lithuania, but there was a group in Boston called the Radin Society. And the Radin Society essentially were people who had lived in Radin, Lithuania. And they all got removed after a time or whatever. And occasionally 20 or 30 people got together once a year in Boston, and they ate and drank, and these were pictures that had been sent to me to show to and give to the Radin Society. I don't know anything about them. I know there's one picture in there of a great uncle of mine who was in Radin and died. I know nothing about him except he was in Radin and he died. I said, thank you very much, and then we packed all up. Why he picked me was I had a camera. And I had been in the Air Force in Japan, and I bought a really nice 35mm camera with 3 or 4 lenses, and I did close-up dental photography. I did children's portraits. I made as much money in March and April doing children's portraits in Austin in bluebonnets than I did doing root canals. So I did a lot of photography. I did social photography, I did weddings, and people asked me to be the second camera and stuff. So I was a professional photographer for 50, years or so in Austin, and I had a great collection of dental stuff that I did. I photographed procedures and used them for lectures. Got my master's and whatever. I knew nothing about the stories of the people or whatever, and then about 3 or 4 years later, I get a telephone call from a guy who is the publisher of Moment magazine. His name is Leonard Fine. They had a really great magazine, and it lasted 8, 10, 12 years in the 70s and 80s. He heard that I had photographs of a little village in Lithuania. He had just gotten a new translation of a Shalom Aleichem story, and it was from Lithuania. Could I send him a couple of my pictures, and he would use it to illustrate the story. I don't have that magazine here, but it tells the story of one of the Shalom Aleichem stories, and he used my pictures. And he gave a little note on the side that these pictures came from me and that there were a village in Lithuania. And the magazine maybe went to 9 or 1,000 people. From that, I started getting letters. What do you have from Lithuania? So somebody wanted this to happen. I don't know, somebody up in heaven turning dials. But within weeks of that, I'm doing a root canal on the Dean of Liberal Arts in Texas, who is not Jewish, but he's a Yiddishist. He teaches Yiddish, and he writes in Yiddish. And he and his wife, who is not Jewish also, are the leading Yiddishists in the South. And he calls me in and he says, I got this translation of this new story, and I helped translate it from Yiddish for Moment magazine for him. But I've never heard of you. How did you get involved in that? So I explained to him. He said, I'd sure like to see your pictures. And I said, well, I'd like to show them to you, but I don't have one of those big throw projectors. I took my slides, and we met in Bath's Hall. And I shot these pictures, and I mean, the guy was having orgasms. He was so excited about these pictures with the Jewish inscriptions in Hebrew and Yiddish. He knew nothing about the village, the story, but he did Yiddish, and that was the beginning. Before he died, one of my father-in-law's brother-in-laws gave me a copy of a book. And the book was a book written by Rabbi Yisrael Meyer Kagan. He was called the Chofetz Hayamim. The Chofetz Hayamim was the name of his first book. It's about what does Chofetz Hayamim mean?
What we want life is like the desire of life.
Yeah.
Life is life. That's it.
There's a story about life and all, and he apparently had a yeshiva in Radin, Lithuania. Same time this is happening, we had a wonderful rabbi by the name of Zimmelman, who as a child almost went to the Radin yeshiva in Lithuania with his family. I mean, his family was going to send him there. And things got a little testy in the world, and they said, well, maybe we ought not go sending you over to Lithuania, Germany, whatever. And so he never went. But there's an article over here that's really kind of unique because it's a description of the liquidation of the Radin ghetto, which was sent to me by someone in all Yiddish, and it got translated. People who've ever written or done any dealings with Rabbi Zimmerman, this is the most meticulous, detailed description. Our 8-man also quickly exited the dark hideout. They had especially difficult time lying cramped in the hideaway because they were so accustomed to conducting their hostilities as fighters at night. I mean, he did this and opened a world to me about these documents. I was then president of the Jewish Federation of Boston. We had a young girl, and she came to us and asked for money to go to the first world gathering of second generation Holocaust survivors. That's children of Holocaust survivors. It's going to be in Israel. And she wanted like $500. So we gave her $500 to go because we had 5 or 6 Holocaust survivors from Boston. And she came to me before she left and I said, listen, they're going to have computers all around, and they're going to have computers from each one of these little villages with information when all of the survivors got together and were taken care of by all the agencies. Part of doing this was finding out who they were, where they came from, how many other people in their family were lost and all. And that's what Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society and all the Orthodox and Jewish groups did, so that they get this log of people. And then they help get all of those people to the United States or reunited with their family. And it was a really, really big operation. And Yad Vashem, which is the Holocaust Memorial in Israel, is where they hosted this, and they had all these stories that people had been debriefed and told their stories, their life histories, and they had computers from each of these different villages, and you could come and you could go to the village where your family was alive. And so that's what she did for me. And I gave her $100, and I said, when you find them and they get you a computer, you can sit there and read them. If there's stories that are worth doing, which every one of them would be, just pay the people there to make copies, and then you'll bring the copies back, and you'll be helping me. And of course, she wanted to go there and visit the city where her family had come from, and they didn't have a computer or stuff like that, so she spent all of her time with mine. She got ready to go, and this poor little girl had only been able to copy like 5 or 6 pages. So she left the $100 with this little girl, and then she came back to Austin. And I thought, oh my God, we just got ripped totally. And I really never ever believed that we were going to get anything. And then she graduated and went off to Israel to study Yad Vashem. Another year passed, and then out of the blue, my dean, who I had done root canals on and do translation, called me and said, there's a package for you here at the Schusterman School. And it came from Israel, and I don't know what it is, but it's got your name. And they sent it there because that's where this girl is in school. And she sent me like details of like 32 families or people who had survived. Some of them were 2 or 3 pages, some of them were 25 pages. And that started my quest to tell the whole story about as many of these people as we could possibly find. I knew nothing about the Chofetz Hayamim or any of that, so I really never ventured that way. But then one day I get a telephone call from Yisrael Meyer Kagan's grandson, who is the head of the yeshiva Chofetz Hayamim in Suffern, New York. He said, I'm not even sure you know that we exist, that we are. I said, well, I know that when the Chofetz Hayamim died, he made the promise that you should divide the yeshiva in half, and half should go to Palestine because there wasn't an Israel yet, and the other half should come to New York. He said, well, my bunch is the one that got to come to New York, but I don't know anything about you and where you found out about us. And he invited me to come show these pictures that are now in really good shape because I've enlarged them, I've tinted them, I've gotten rid of a lot of garbage. And I had a kid who worked for my dental building who was studying photography. And I paid for him to go clean these things up and enlarge them and print them and spot out some stuff and make copies of all the Yiddish inscriptions, because we had somebody that translated all of those. So I went to the 50th yard site of the Chofetz Hayamim, which was a dinner party in New York at the Roosevelt Hotel. But before that, my wife and I went to the yeshiva in Suffern, New York. We spent Friday night and Saturday with them, although she wasn't able to do anything because the women didn't participate in anything that I could participate with the services. But we met all the rabbis and everybody there. And then they presented me with family pictures of these over here who are the rabbis who led the yeshiva in Suffern, the ones who were in Israel, and the ones that nobody left. Nobody was left remaining in Radin. We got a story from one guy who fought with the Nazis, and he when they came to kill the people in Radin, they sent like 4 or 5 guys, and there were 8 or 10 teenage, heavy, good guys, and they beat them up. They couldn't save their families and all, so they went into the forests, and they fought with the underground for another year and a half. They blew up a train once, they derailed, and these bandits, these fighters, did more damage to one train, knocked off 5 or 6 tanks, 4 or 5 land carriers and mortars. They did more damage than the American Army had done in that area for like 2 years. And then they kind of escaped. He sent me a almost hour audio tape. I had to send him a tape recorder and film. But I met him at the banquet, and I gave him a tape recorder and film it. And I figured, well, I'll never see this again. And then he sent like an hour and a half tape. And so that's how I got 4 or 5 of the stories. And I got approached to give my whole collection to Yad Vashem in Israel. But before I did that, I got approached to give it to the University of Texas in Austin. And so they created the Casement Family Lecture on Eastern European Jewish Life at the Schusterman School. And we put all of my stuff there. Schusterman School at the time was like 2 classrooms we have in the back here. That's as big as Schusterman was. Now it's got 8 offices and 14 faculty and a lot of space. But all of my stuff got put in the Gulf Briscoe Americana history system. And we're now in the process of moving it out of there and moving it to where it should be in the Schusterman School. Do you have any questions about how any of that happened? It was all just totally chance. I never ever thought that I would be in a position where I'd be telling an audience, or I've told bunches of audiences, mainly school kids. And I got to the Holocaust Commission because I told stories and stuff to people in schools. And so I got recommended for the Holocaust Commission. I'm the only person on the Holocaust Commission that had nobody involved in the Holocaust. I just had pictures of it and stories. But I served on the Holocaust Commission for 8 years. So it was kind of cool. What do you want to do? You want to take a break and eat? You want to take a break and eat?
Up to you.
I would almost say that we should continue with the slideshow because
Yeah.
we're recording and
We're
filming right
recording.
now, so we have to continue.
Okay.
Let's continue.
Let me turn this on to see if the picture's okay. Why don't we turn those off? Do you have any questions or anything about any of this before? This is Radin in the Chofetz Hayamim. These are street scenes. These are photographs taken like if you went back to your hometown and you took pictures of your old house and where you used to eat, or these are pictures that a photographer took to send back to people in the United States who had left Radin and come to America. These are people that walk on the street. This is a market day. Market day was every other Wednesday, and they brought people from like 4 or 5 other villages. It was the central part. Let me describe some things for you. These are the houses of the people from Radin. They're all wooden sided and have cedar kind of roofs. The big groove in the street is a drain. It snowed there, and sometimes the snow was up to the sides of the houses. There were not snow plows or snow removal, so if you didn't need the snow to come inside and pack into a basement so that you could refrigerate stuff in a separate room, then you didn't have a need for the snow. But a good number of folks didn't have that, so the snow was it just left and melted out.
When someone took on those pictures, did they just set up the camera and click, or did they have to sit there?
I don't know what type of photography. It was done with a hood, and you'd open up the lens and then you would close it, and then you would change.
So you managed.
It was not film. It was a piece of glass that had it. And they did. This is the typical transportation around the village. It was more. These were work wagons, and then you can put people in it and drive if you're coming to town. This is winter, and so the peasants had. These are all probably Lithuanian Jews. They have boots. They have heavy clothes on. This young man, we see again somewhere because he hung around the street. But this is one of the main streets.
So are these the pictures that you developed with the glass?
Yes. These are photographs that I took of those slides.
But these are the original pictures you were talking about
These are the original
at the beginning of the
that were in the shoebox. The little X down at the end is the well on this side of town. They did not have a problem. There was a lot of water, a lot of rivers, a lot of things. But this is the well that they used primarily for drinking and cooking. All these little kids and people, I mean, there's pictures of all over because probably the camera. This is a group of people on the porch of one of the buildings. The guy in the plaid shirt shows up a lot of time. I think he was kind of a narcissist kind of guy, just like to show off his vest, because he's in a lot. And then there's more kids on the side. These two guys are walking along. This is a very descriptive film. Each of the numbers on the houses were identified. I had their names. We ended up with 86 names of families that were there. There are electric poles there, but at that point there was no electricity. They were used primarily for telegraph. The guy on the left leaning over to his wagon, his name was Matuka. Matuka's job was to collect manure. There were hundreds of horses and people, and you see on the right on the ground there, that's manure. You think, well, that wouldn't be a big deal, except there's no other transportation there except these wagons. There's a bus that comes every Wednesday, every other Wednesday. And the manure was very important. Matuka was one of the wealthiest guys in town because he collected manure and he gave it and sold it to the farmers around. And he also cleaned out outhouses. So he was one of the richest guys in the community, and he had a trade. And he had a monopoly on it because nobody else wanted to fight Matuka. This is a guy
So
that
what's the approximate date of these pictures? Do we know?
these pictures were taken prior to 1930. prior to 1930. The Chofetz Hayam died in 1930. This is a wet, rainy day, so they were there more than 1 or 2 days. And this is typical of winter. There's water and wintry, and people were now heavily dressed. And this is the same street we've been watching before, but now this is winter. This is the central square where the market took place. Those are the houses around the end. The house on the end corner, far left, is the house of the Chofetz Hayam. Everything now to the left of that becomes the yeshiva. I'll show you pictures of that. But this is a day where they had market day, which was Wednesday. There's a rock fence you can see that goes along the whole rock block there. Someone told me that that was a barrier that they set up when they fought the Germans in World War I. That has been disproved. It's not really that. This is a guy well dressed with knickers and a nice outfit, and he's just on the street. The people that are wearing white headdresses and all are the Lithuanian peasants. And there were a pretty good population of Lithuanians. When the Chofetz Hayam brought his yeshiva there, the town had about 700 people. The yeshiva, in its very beginning stages, had 450 students. And then when it closed in 1930, 1931, 32, there were over 200 students who left there and either went to Israel or to Palestine or to New York. The main economy of this village was hosting yeshiva students, feeding them and clothing them, and letting them stay in their home. So there were 200 students there, and 1 or 2 each in each home. Better than 80% of the community had yeshiva students. They were called walkers, yeshiva walkers. This is Market Day. This is Market Square. 1 or 2, I have names of the houses, but this is typical of what the fields were always like. There are cows, there's a few pigs. They assured me that they weren't pigs. Well, they were pigs. But there were cows. Everybody had horses and a wagon. This is children on the street. The black building on the left is the old shul. The significance of this picture is that over there, there's a whole pile of rubble left. It's where the old mill burned in 1929. At the top, you don't see the insignia of the instruction, but it had 1920 where the old mill burned. This is called Goya Shirgas. This is the street where the Goya lived. So it was a big enough town with Jews that they still would have a street where the poor Goya lived. But this was like the south end for one, south side for one description for around here. And this is Matuka again. These are the public buildings. The municipality was fairly big. Small villages around it fed into this. And we were in the middle. You could go north to Vilna, south to Radin, and a little left to Lida, which are the 3 Lithuanian cities. Across the side and north was Russia. This is the public bathhouse. You see the pigs up in the corner? They refuse to admit that those are pigs. All right, so we had no pigs. You see in the middle, there's a ladder going up to the roof. That was to be able to knock the snow off the roof so that the roof didn't get too heavy and collapse. This is one of the biggest buildings. that had a slant roof. The thing in the middle there, this little circular thing, see where the pigs are? There's a little round circular part that comes back down. That's the boiler inside there. The building was always hot and warm because it was a bathhouse. And the mikveh was inside there. The little fence inside there, because it's got water in it, that was always muddy, and there were always pigs and animals inside the little fence there. This is the mill. You would drive up your wagon to the side there. This guy ran up in the window, would manage the thing, and there was a pump or a series of big shovels that would come in and dump and take your grain in, and it got milled, and then it would eventually get dumped back onto your wagon. See the guy sitting over on his wagon, right above the kid with the head, with the hat. Those are 2 bags of grain that's just been milled, and it is there. This is the pole barn. They're starting to put in telegraph, and so they need telegraph and telephone lines. That truck is loaded with future telephone poles. I think this slide, I think, is backwards. The Hebrew is going the wrong way, but that's the pole barn. There are children all over the pictures and everywhere. These are all Polish children who go to the Polish military school. This is this picture again. This is the main street again. Now you can see that there's commerce in those buildings. The building that's right in the middle now is a mercantile store. The guy who owned all this land and became a city, the Lithuanian government paid him for his land. He became the wealthiest man there. He became a count in the Lithuanian society. There's 8 or 10 kids there, and depending upon their grade, they had a different uniform. Because of the rain and the weather, they ended up putting heavier bridges there, especially where people were coming back and forth to get to the mercantile store. Back on the right is a bus. The bus came, was the only motorized transportation that's on any of the pictures. But the bus came on Wednesdays. So this is a Wednesday in Lithuania in the late 1920s, early 30s. These are the kids, and based upon their position in the schools, if you can see, the fourth kid over from the right is barefooted, and there's another one like the one at the edge that's barefooted. I don't know whether they just didn't have shoes or whatever, because the winters were bad and it was cold. This is one bicycle. I found pictures of 3 bicycles in all the collection. This is on the outskirts of town, on the way to Lida. You can see there's a lot of people back in the background. They're either coming to Radin for market day, or that's where they're working. But this is one bicycle. Here's another bicycle downtown. And then here's a third bicycle over on the left in front of the building there with the sign is the apothecary. This little girl also has no shoes. But there are people sitting out there. It's sunny, it's nice. But I would probably think that they would still be pretty cold. This is a daycare. All the littler kids stayed there during the day until like 6, when mother or dad or whoever it was got off their work or got away from their farm and could come collect them. Most of them, if they went to the Polish school like went till noon, these folks would end up back there. And the lady on the left, her name was Berkowitz. There's another picture. Let's see a picture of her. And we've never tried or had a reason to figure out why this kid has got something, it's like a mask, he's got it over his face. But apparently there wasn't a lot of disease or sickness. People took care of themselves and stayed well and the like. This little kid just posed for this picture along this rock wall. There's a little kid back in the background. There's a little baby over there going into one of the buildings. The story about the rock wall was after the yeshiva got there and there became a plethora of Orthodox rabbis who are usually forbidden to go into a cemetery. They collected these stones and made a barrier so that the rabbis or the yeshiva or the other Orthodox people would by accident walk into the area that had been a cemetery. It wasn't a Jewish cemetery because there was a Catholic church over on the edge of town. This is the Polish school. Polish school. See that? And there's a government crest on the side of the wall there. This is an organization of young girls from Radin, but it's run by the yeshiva. Because in the middle of right there where the first crack is in the film, there's a 1, 2, 3, 4 men that are the head of this women's club. Can you see in Hebrew what it says?
Yes.
Can you see it? Huh? I have it written down somewhere. Here are some of the people from Radin. This is really one of the greatest pictures in this collection. This is the Hebrew Free Loan Society. And you got to look at these guys. These are guys that are loaning the community's money out to farmers or whoever needs money. Number 2 is really good looking. The one in the middle has got a cigarette in his mouth. And the other 2 are the 4 members of the Hebrew Free Loan Society. They look like mafia guys, you know? This is the Zadowski Bank Board. Zadowski is the family. You'll see a picture of the Zadowski home soon. But 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1 are the people, the middle, and the guy in the middle with the cane, that's number 3. He's the president of the bank. I don't know if I can bring it. Can you see Zadowski on the name there? And then the kids show up and they just get in the picture. This is the rest of the Zadowski Bank, but this is the apothecary board, the apteker board. Number 7 is the apothecary, he's a pharmacist, and his wife is number 8. You can look through the window, and you can almost make out apothecary jars back on the shelves. And there's a child sitting in the window. Children weren't allowed in there because of all the jars and stuff. And one of the guys who told me about the apothecary said they had all kinds of medicines and they were very up to date. And their community almost never got sick because they had access to the apothecary, the pharmacist, and other kind of witch doctor kind of things. But because you could go in there and they could heat something up and put it on your head or whatever, and the next day you were well, it was kind of heavenly and godly and holy. So you didn't go in there unless you really had to be there. And when you were there, you were quiet and polite. You were going to talk with a loud voice. And the children weren't allowed to be like, but it was kind of godly, they said. This is the Zadowski family who owned the bank. The senior of Zadowski is over on the left. He was in the military, and this is what's left of his military uniform. The lady in the middle was the nicest dressed of all the people in the picture. And there's another part of it got cut off, but you can see inside their house there's really nice curtains and tapestry and there's glass windows. You can't see The mother, in the middle, you can see her hands in her face. She's in all black. But they had the nicest, prettiest house. This is the clinic. The clinic was open on Tuesdays from 10 to 4 in the afternoon. And that's the nurse, number one, and his wife, number two. And they have little babies there, and their descriptions about who can come in. It's probably kind of like going to one of the clinics around here where there's a waiting list and you fill out your papers and you wait. This is the youngest son of the Zadowski bank people. He's the only single portrait there, other than the portrait of the rabbi. This is a picture that was kind of a fluke. It's not in my collection. The young lady up in the right corner with her black hair. This is a wedding. The father of the bride, he's got the long V-shaped beard. The groom is the guy in the black wandering glasses. The bride is in front of him. Her mother is on her left. His mother is on the right. And the matchmaker who put the thing together is right next to the little girl on the far right. The little girl was like a bridesmaid in the wedding. And she had this, and she sent it to me because she read in the magazine that I had pictures. She moved away, and the three men in the middle were all associated with the yeshiva. This is the Kaplan family, which are distantly related to Aunt Eva, who gave me the pictures from her attic. He was a rabbi, and this is one of the second nicely dressed. They were probably hired to take the picture because that's why she came at some later date to visit the village for the Radin. This is Jewish life in the village. This is the Holy Ark. You can see the Ten Commandments. You can see the blessing from the hands. There's a jackal on one side. There are birds at the top. There's the eternal light where the crown is at the top. And this was in the Kol Shul. This is the Kol Shul. Beit Hag. Okay, you need to know that this was not the yeshiva synagogue. This is the village synagogue. The inscription where the star is, that's the main door. But because the snow, you can see snow in the corner on the left side. There's still snow against the building. And the snow would come up. You see, they had to make a second entrance above the snow level so that you could come up the steps to go there. As it was, the women sat in the upper part anyway, so they made the steps, and then it was an afterthought, and they had not put shingles and a roof over that little porch on the right. So the women got mad, and they had to change the building. The building was originally just square. It was called the Kol Shul because they didn't have heat. And the Kever Kadesh go in the side. You see between the edge of the porch and where the snow is, there's another door that goes down into the basement. The yeshiva guys who were rabbis couldn't go down into the Kever Kadesh. See the side door that goes down into the basement. The inscription on the door on the top says only the holy may enter here. And then there's another set of stairs that go up to the balcony. But again, it wasn't covered in, and it wasn't good. The women wanted another door. This is the Holy Ark. You can see the birds, and you can see there's a gourd of some sort over the top of the curtains for the ark. But obviously, well carved out and well prepared. I don't know how many Torahs or other stuff that was there. This is the cemetery, and this is the Chazan. His name is Chazan Sher, and he is saying Kaddish over this grave. And I think the grave was related to the Caplets. I can't prove that. But why would, if the Caplets had somebody take the pictures there not be a picture of that? And there's some names. The gravestones are really elaborate, and Kamiansky and I think I'm closer. Kamiansky. Rodofsky. This is Rav Mervis. Rav Mervis is not old. Rav is a very young man, and he's the village rabbi. And he and his wife live in a separate house. He finished at the yeshiva, and they gave him a job as a village rabbi. And this is his house. Of all the houses and everything, this is the nicest, most elaborate, all brick with nice glass windows, wonderful doors, and you can see really good roof. You don't have to climb up on top of it to knock the snow off. And really nice porch. And this is like a market day where there might be 18 or 20 people, maybe even visiting the rabbi. Market day was on Wednesdays of every week, and they brought all the trade from 5 or 6 little villages around, or little shtetls around. I made 22 individual photographs of this one picture, and it's kind of like Bedlam, except people come in and bring everything they own. The guy with the heavy coat, he is the count who inherited, sold all the land for the village and has the mercantile store. There's a guy with a really kind of nice beard here. He's got stuff on his wagon there. Everybody's come to trade. Pardon me, this is the count. He's got his dark coat and his hat. There's 2 bags of grain that just got picked up at the granary. There's blankets on the top of the edge of that cart. There's a lady sitting in her cart. The horses and all are packed in. There's bags of grain up at the top. This lady obviously did quilts and stuff. There's a guy there. There were 2 or 3 shoes. People made and repaired shoes.
Little cobblers.
Cobblers. There were 3 or 4 cobblers there. And of course, there are hundreds of these little planned. These are what the Jewish women had these. You also have this mix of Lithuanian peasants in there too. They're the ones with the white hats. Here's the yeshiva.
That was the yeshiva.
I don't know, there's that stuff. Okay.
Just not going back.
It's better to think not. the last of market day. This is the yeshiva. This is the new yeshiva building. It's all brick, it's all enclosed. It's got 4 or 5 big stacks. So it also substitutes for the cold shul, because it's got, there's a Polish crest on the wall. See it right on the middle of the wall? Okay, that's a Polish crest.
Why was it there?
I don't know why. This is the old yeshiva building. It didn't have heat, and they ended up turning it into like the older boys' dormitory when they ran out of homes for people to stay in. This is the house of the Chofetz Hayamim. It's got the windows on the side. There's this little boy again who's always sitting on a rock. You know, I think I have 4 or 5 pictures of him. This is a drawing that someone sent me that they had in one of their family albums about the Beit HaMidrash. It matches kind of what I got. These are yeshiva buffers on the side of the yeshiva. The side wall of the yeshiva brick building is there. And there's a bunch of them over there. And then the house to the left is the Chofetz Hayam's house. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 7 of the rabbis there. There's a woman over on the far left side. This is the Chofetz Hayam's picture that I took out of a book. This is the Chofetz Hayam's only picture that I have that's in our collection. And it's in front of his house, and this is a Shabbat, and everybody is there. All of the men that are there are rabbis in the yeshiva. There's a little boy to the left of the door. There's a woman who's got her head in a scarf. She is, her name is Hannah, and she was a maid in the Chofetz Hayam's house. The woman against the other part is the Chofetz Hayam's wife. The Chofetz Hayam is seated. You can see his cane out to the left. The guy that's moving it is the blur. If he hadn't moved, I'd have not had a picture of the Chofetz Hayam. This is the Chofetz Hayam in my only picture. He's about 4 foot 7 feet tall. Number 3 is his son. Number 2 is his wife. But the guy in the front is almost blocking us. This is a picture that's got to be a picture taken off my pictures, because this is the only other picture that I found of the Chofetz Hayam. This is the Chofetz Hayam at his desk inside the yeshiva. He's laying tefillin, and he's almost as tall as the table. This is the Chofetz Hayam grave, and it's a memorial to him after he died, and left, and they all moved away.
Is it still there, or was it destroyed? 'Cause I know the Nazis raised where it is.
I have a picture over here of whatever memorial. Now they have a memorial to the Jews that died. This is the Chofetz Hayam's funeral after he was 100. His body is in the middle of the crowd. They're carrying him. But the yeshiva building is there. His house is to the left. And way back, you can see the shadow of the old shul, of the cold shul. You see it? Back in the doorway. You see that? Huh? This is the glass windows next to the edge of the old shul. This is the Chofetz Hayam's house. This is the yeshiva. The Chofetz Hayam's body is here. So this is kind of the yeshiva campground. This is the head of the yeshiva, Chofetz Hayam, in Radin. This is the son-in-law of the Chofetz Hayamim. And his name is Hillel Zaks. He's there in the Chofetz Hayamim's house. He's got a cigarette in his hand. He's got all the Torahs and all the books there. This is the grave marker for the Chofetz Hayamim. Yisrael Meyer HaKagan. I had a dream Tuesday night. I hadn't used this projector in 7 or 8 years. And my dream was that the bulb would die. But it didn't.
It
Thank you,
didn't.
Frank.
Thank you, Frank.
If you want to take a break and see, I can tell you what is over here. You can look at it at your leisure. This is the first article that got written about life in Lot with pictures. It got published in the Jewish Outlook, which was in Austin. It got published because I was president of the Jewish Federation of Austin.
How are you?
These are pictures that were given to me by the Chofetz Hayam's family. This is Chofetz Hayam in here, this picture. And this is a picture of the memorial over his grave. There's a picture over here of
Where was this location?
the Lithuanian.